Good evening and welcome to Leicester Fan TV. Tom here again for another away fan special show. Where do we start? After the high of beating Nottingham Forest 4-0, I think we all thought we might just have turned a corner. Well, it all came back down, crashing back down to earth, didn't we, with a bit of a bump on Saturday. Another loss from a winning position, 1-0 up after, 10 minutes, Daka with another goal. And we're all just sitting there just for half time thinking, we've got this one. Another 45 minutes, bit scrappy, but another win on the belt. The second half performance, well, what can you say? Disappointing. No really energy about the team. And then to concede two horrendous goals was the icing on the cake, really, for the weekend. And that it was the first time we'd heard the "We Want Rodgers Out" chants in the ground for me. I was there, Stockport, when the Leicester fans were singing "You're Getting Sacked" in the morning. But this is the first time that I'd heard the chants of "We Want Rodgers Out." I fear what the ground is going to be like on Saturday, because we saw against Forest with the Union F boys did the great tifo. It really got the crowd on side. It really got the crowd. It was a local derby and everyone up for it. Now we play Crystal Palace in a game that, as Mzumble say, they'd rather lose and Rodgers got sacked. On the opposite. We need to start winning football matches if we need to be in the Premier League next year. After Saturday's game, Leicester will have 28 games remaining to try and save themselves a Premiership place. Where do we start? It has to be Palace and it has to be a win. It doesn't matter about Rodgers anymore, in my view. The board will make the decision if they want to get rid of him. But Saturday is a must-win game. Tonight, we're joined by Rich from the Eagle Eyes Football Channel as we discuss Crystal Palace. And, well, what can we say? Last season, Patrick Vieira had a good season with them boys. Let's get Rich in. Evening, Rich.
Evening, and thank you so much for having me on.
Hey, no problem, mate. Before we go into this season, let's talk about Crystal Palace last season. You know, it wasn't a bad season in all for you boys. A first full season for Vieira in the Premier League. You know, you're never sure you're going to expect from a manager that has played in the Premier League, had a great history in the Premier League with the Arsenal. You're wondering what can he do, because he had spells abroad where it hadn't really worked out for him abroad. He'd had a few ifs and buts seasons. I mean, last year you boys finished 14th, you played 38, you won 11, drawn 10 and lost 17. You finished on 43 points. What did you think of the season last year, mate, in general? What did you think Vieira brought to your team?
You know what? I was very, very, very glad to have, obviously, PV come in. You mentioned, obviously, the clubs that he used to play for, manage. And one thing that stuck to me was the fact that he went to the MLS. What that said to me is that he's not prideful in a sense, like he's willing to go learn his trade and such. Obviously, this was after Hodgson, who's done a fantastic job with us, sustaining us as a Premier League club. But we kind of had no direction. We didn't know what type of style of play we had with Hodgson. Was it partner bus and let Saha do everything? Stifling our creative players like Eze and such. And it was like, okay, we're in the Prem, but doing what? Vieira's coming. First preseason game, we're trying to play out from the back. Like, with Tompkins and Kelly at centre back. Like, really? It was new. It was all new, and the season started and we had a difficult run-in, the same as this year as well, actually. But everyone can see, it was like, this is different. We may not have been picking up results, but it was like, oh, we're playing football. We're actually playing football this year. So I was really happy with the season last year. Obviously topped off with a FA Cup semi-final at Wembley. We gave a good account of ourselves against Chelsea as well, and this, unfortunately, their class shone through. Finished 14th. I believe we could have had a top 10 finish. One of our biggest issues last year was conceded late goals. That hasn't changed. But all in all, I think the fan base were happy. We've got some amazing young talent in our team, unbelievable talent, and it's just about looking forward now. The only disappointing thing going into this season is I don't think Vieira was backed as much as he could have been, because I think we're very light in some areas. But a decent running, these 9 points. We've played City, we played Arsenal, we played Chelsea, we played Liverpool, Newcastle away. Not been easy fixtures, and we picked up 9 points. So yeah, happy, definitely happy.
Before we go into the season, I mean, obviously last season we'll go into the 2 games against Palace, Leicester Palace. Obviously at your place, Leicester threw a 2-0 lead away. I mean, what can I say? You get the goals, you got gifted the goals, in my view. You get yourself 1-0 up, and then Anderson gives the ball to Nacho to run through and make it 2-0, and you're thinking, right, Leicester's got an away win on the board and we're flying. And then, as we've seen this season, the performances again, but we can't keep a clean sheet, and
yeah,
we gifted you 2 goals, and in the end you should have won. You had enough chance in the second half to bury us, and then the reverse fixture at the King Power. What can you say? First half, once again, Leicester City dominate the first half. Lookman and Dewsbury all on the score sheet, and he's sitting at half time thinking, right boys, see this out. A couple of little chances for Leicester, but once again Tielemans gives a penalty away. Zaha misses it. It's saved. Retake.
Yeah.
Right. Not what we need, but come on, Casper, who saves it again, but obviously it fell straight to Wonder Boy Zaha, who heads it in and then runs off and puts his tongue out of the Leicester fan. And then, like you say, Leicester again rolled the luck, and Palace probably should have got something out of that game. A point at minimum. What did you make of the 2 games if you saw them, and what's your feelings out of the games themselves where they were last season with the 2 clubs?
Going back to the first one at Selhurst Park, I mean, it was just disappointing the manner in which we conceded the goals. Very disappointing. However, it was great to show character in that game and to come back. And as you said, I can't believe we didn't win it. Like, with the chances we had, and I think Schlupp had one in the 89th minute, which just went wide of the post. So, like I said, it was just great to show character. Elise came on as a sub that game and was just a problem, and he that epitomizes him. And Vieira's kind of eased him into games and stuff, but he's our starting right winger, in my personal opinion. The game, obviously, at yours, I feel like the timing of it was terrible for us because, yes, obviously we're pushing for a top 10 finish, but the week after we knew we had the FA Cup semi-final, and we just weren't at the races. Just weren't at the races at all. And what then didn't help was Mitchell came off injured, and I guarantee all the players started thinking, wait, I'm not trying to be missing the semi-final. So it kind of like fizzled out the game. It just kind of fizzled out into like and stuff. So great character, home game. The game down at yours at the King Power, it was just like I wouldn't say they was fully focused on that game and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how this Saturday goes.
As you said, you've played Arsenal, you lost on the opening day too. Then you got a great point at Anfield. You then beat Villa at home when you were 1-0 down after about a minute and a half, I think it was. You then you then lost to Man City, though. You gave them a good run for the money in that game, as you always do. You got a draw against Brentford, a draw against Newcastle away. You then had 2 tricky home ties, really, and lucky against Chelsea that you were in that game. A bit of brilliance from a banger, and not really, what can you say? And then obviously Gallagher, well, the boy's class at times and shown it against his former club, as they always come back to haunt them. And then obviously on Sunday, you beat Leeds United 2-1 again. You went a goal down and got back into it.
Yeah.
What has Vieira changed? What players has he brought into the club in the summer? What has he tried to change? Or has he kept himself very much the same as last year? Or has he tried to tweak it now? Because you've got so much talented up front. You know, you got Zaha, you got Eduardo, you got all these attacking Eze. You got so much firepower in my view. You know, on your day you should be threatening teams, and for some reason you just look like a team that's still in trying to figure out the best way to play to get the best out of all your players, and where does best to play Zaha at times. You know, we see him on the wings, we've seen him play down the middle, and for someone he has got a good record in the Premier League, in fairness to him, but you never know where his best position is going to be, or if he's going to have one of the games where he's going to turn up and have a worldie, or he's just going to moan and cry and chuck his dummy out the pram because every time he gets touched, he goes down. And you boys know it. That's true.
To an extent, yes. The moaning and stuff, it is irritating, but I know it's just his passion and stuff. He wants to win. But it's like, come on, Will, like 29 now, like, come on, and stuff. I think he gets a bad press regarding like the fouls. I think because of how he goes down sometimes, he's kind of built up like a reputation, if that makes sense. So,
well,
I was his cause.
I was going to say, I was in the ground when Paulo Sousa was in charge, and you boys were 3-0 up at half time, and Will Zaha, a 19-year-old, made his championship debut at that game, and I was in the ground, and that day I was like, wow, this boy's something special, and you could see it. I remember at half time, me and my mate were like, we had battered here, but that boy is something special. You know, he's got a bright future out, and obviously we lost 3-2 that day. But I remember sitting there thinking, this kid's got something about him. But obviously, you know, 29, 10 years later, 29, you know, you're expecting after the disappointment, it didn't work for Man United, or he didn't get enough chance at Man United. You think now he's the catalyst for your football club. He's got to be the leader. He's the one who's got to be showing the responsibility. And like you say, he does get some bad press for chucking himself on the floor sometimes. And generally, sometimes he is bad, and you're thinking, I can understand his frustration, because if he doesn't get touched there, he's away and going towards goal, or, you know, he's going to create a chance. But I think at 29, there's also that side of it is you should now go teaching the youngsters that you can't do that in the Premier League anymore and expect people not to get on your back.
No, absolutely. You're spot on. And that's at least it's a fair, accurate representation of what he goes through game to game. You know, a lot of people, like I say, they will just immediately, oh, he's this, he's that, and the other. And to an extent, you agree, but you got to look at it at both sides and such. But this season, he's started off pretty decent. The last 2 games, I wouldn't say he's had his best and such, but he's got 4 goals already, a couple of assists as well. You know, well, to be fair, it was a great assist for Eze's goal against Leeds. You know, but with regards to Vieira, I think strengthening. So we brought quite a few youngsters in. Chet Decore is the main one. He was like the number 1 target. He's unbelievable, by the way. Such a good holding midfielder. He's now allowed us to have 2 8s as opposed to when we played 2 6s and 1 10. You know. But I think the only issue, personally, I think, like I said, I think we needed another midfielder. You know, because now Jordan Ayew is now stuck in centre mid, and he's actually doing okay there. Or it's Jeffrey Schlupp. It's an area of the game that you have to kind of dominate to win football matches, and we can play well enough for 60 minutes, and then we look onto the bench, and it's like, the options are not looking great, you know. And then that's obviously played its part in obviously us conceding a few late goals this season. But all in all, look, this season we knew our running is ridiculous. It's from the Leeds game onwards that we were like, we're going to judge Vieira and we're going to judge this team. Like, how serious are they in breaking into the top 10? Is there a cheeky Europa Conference League? Is it Conference League? Yeah,
Conference League, then Europa League,
Is there a cheeky run into that? We got the win against Leeds. For half an hour, we were dreadful. We've managed to come out of that with a win. Second half, we were so much better. It means nothing if we don't go and get at least a point, because I respect Leicester. Yes, you're having a rough time, but when you're on, when it's going good, you guys are frightening. So at least a draw this Saturday, and then we've got Wolves at home Tuesday. So then it starts looking a little bit more rosier if we can get those wins and stuff and push us up the table.
I think what you're saying is very much the way Rodgers has looked at our mini season. You know, we started off with some tough games. I still think the two home games before the Forest against Brentford, we were 2-0 up and blew it. Southampton 1-0 up and we blew it, you know, to drop the points the way we did against them. You know, people say we had a tough start, and we did. We, you know, playing Man United, Arsenal, Chelsea. They're not an easy start to the season. But now he's hit this mini game, as you call it, 5 games, and obviously it was Forest, Bournemouth, you boys, Wolves, you know, games, Leeds United in there, and then obviously then we play Manchester City. Yeah, but we're not counting that part of the mini package. But we had 5 games, and I think this is where Rodgers has said this is where we expect to see our season turn around.
Yeah.
And obviously the Forest game, yeah, it did sort of turn around, but then again, the performance against Bournemouth wasn't good enough, and this is the catalyst of Rodgers was saying this is our time to really pull away from the bottom lot. Well, you can't go beat one and then not back it up. And this was said that Forest win meant nothing because we didn't back it up with something. Like you boys saying, you're beating Leeds. You now, you know, to go and get a point at the King Power be a good point.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, if you get a point to the King Power, I'd be more sorry for you boys honestly at the moment the way we're playing. And like I said, going into the game, I generally feel if you boys score first on Saturday, you could have it could be like when Claude Puel got sacked at Leicester and you beat us 4-1 at the King Power. I generally feel that that's how it could turn very, very quickly. Fans will get turned on Saturday. I have no hesitation. If we go a goal down, there'll be no back in the team. It will all turn to Brendan Rodgers out.
Yeah.
And it's not what I will be doing because I don't do that. I'll always support the lads and I want the lads to do well. I want us to win games. I want Rodgers gone now. There's no football. He's burnt his bridges with the fans. But I want us to win football matches. I don't want to be going back to the Championship. As you boys know, we've both been in there long enough at times, and it's so hard to get out. And once you get in the Premiership, to stay in it's hard enough to do for the amount of years both clubs have been here. To go back down again and get up and stay again. You look at Norwich, who just yo-yo back and forth. West Brom were another yo-yo team.
Yeah.
It's the hardest thing to do to stay in the Premier League once you get there. So to get there and then stay in it and make yourself a force, you know, some ways people moan about finishing 15th, 16th, 17th every year, but you're in the Premier League. And to do that, and you can start building then like Palace have over the years and Leicester have done over the years. But if you keep yo-yoing, it just becomes, well, you're just that yo-yo team. Fulham, another one, they're a yo-yo team.
Yeah.
Now they're trying to cement themselves in the Premier League. So coming on to Saturday's game, early kickoff, live on BT Sport. What do you think the team will be on Saturday, mate? Do you really think he'll make changes from that Leeds United team, or do you think he will stick to his guns? I know you said you haven't got many options to change, but do you think he'll stick to what he went with at Leeds?
I think
formation and the selection.
I think so. I think he will keep it. Oh, actually, no, because Mitchell didn't start. Jeffrey Schlupp went left back. So.
Love Schlupp. Legend.
He works hard for us. I reckon it'll still be VG in goal. However, his kicking as of late has been dreadful. So I wouldn't mind Sam Johnston coming in. But I think he'll go VG. Back four of Ward, Anderson, Gay, and Mitchell. I reckon Mitchell will come back in. Decore. See, he's been playing Eze and Elise as 2-8s. Now, normally I would say don't do that. Keep Elise out wide and have Ayu in because Ayu's been playing well at 8. But against you guys, it might not be a bad idea. But I'm going to say Decore, Ayu, and Eze. And in the front three, Zaha, Edouard, and Elise.
Well, if that's your front three, I'm worried at the weekend because at the moment, as you've seen, we're conceding goals, but not just any goals, they're just poor goals, mate. Everything we're conceding is like a long shot flying in the top corner. You know, Spurs away gives some credit. He scored a couple of worldies, but like the weekend, they're just poor defensively. We just look all over the place at the moment. You know, and Diddy's don't think he'll play the week again. So Bakary Samari, who you were linked with in the summer, will probably get another start. He started at Bournemouth and didn't have a bad game. He came off the against Forest at half time. He had another good game there. He's learning his trade. It's his second season in the Premier League at 21. I think sometimes we expect too much from 21-year-olds to hit the ground running in the Premier League from a different country. A foreign player coming to the Premier League does not know what's hit him until he gets here. It's very, very, very rare that you see a player come in. Okay, Haaland is a freak of nature. Let's put it that way when it comes to it. But it's very rare you see a foreign player come into the Premier League and settle in like he has. It always takes them a season and a bit to get to grips with what the Premier League is about, or they have a half decent season. Bakary Samari didn't barely play a football game last year for Leicester for different reasons, COVID, family loss, and this, that, and the other. So this season, a bit like he's come out and said he's got something to prove and he wants to prove it. Last season was talking about leaving. This season, before the season started, he sat down with Rod and said, "No, I want to stay. I want to prove a point." So he will probably play it on the game.
To be honest with you, I was gutted.
Well, he didn't get him.
Yeah.
I've always said since we've signed him, there is a very talented young man there, and he reminds me of your manager. And the first thing I ever said, he reminds me of Vieira. His build, he's very physical. He's got he's very athletic as well. He can run with the football at his feet. He isn't scared to get involved. It's the other side of the game, though, that he's learning that you've got to track your man. You can't do all the hard work going forward and getting the ball and doing the nice passive bit if you're doing the defensive bit and then the bloke you're supposed to be marking run past your shoulder and goes in and scores. That's the bit of the game at the moment that he's learning for me. And you're only going to learn that by playing week in, week out. It doesn't just happen in the Premier League because we know how good midfielders making runs in the Premier League is. One of the biggest things what bring them out of game is the third man run and people run into the box late. And if you don't mark them, then that's where the chances come. And that's probably where you boys will have the joy of the weekend. If you can get Zaha down the wing and Eze down the wing and then be looking for the runners coming into the box, you've got all the joy in the world at the moment because that's where our biggest weakness is. It's not through the pitch. It's people coming down wide and then we're not picking the last runner up so everyone follows the men into the box and there's a massive gap on the outside of it because obviously Ndidi wasn't closing down or someone's not lost the mark, and that's the way we've been conceding goals. So I'm worried, mate, going into the game. I'm worried because you boys could have a field day. If you scored early, it can be a field day.
Let's hope so. Can I ask a question?
Go on. Of course you can.
Danny Ward's not having a great season.
I didn't want to mention him tonight, mate, to be honest,
I'm not going to go into that. My question was actually about Kasper Schmeichel. I'm just surprised how it was just all of a sudden, he's off to Nice.
So, obviously, two days before the transfer window shut, 2 days before the season started, it was announced that Kasper was leaving and going to Nice. There was 3 or 4 days of talks, and it was that he was going, and we were like, yeah, okay. And then I've always been like, look, Danny Ward's a backup keeper for a reason. Doesn't play in many games. Yes, he's good for Wales, but again, if you're not playing many games, you're fresh every time you play for Wales. Funny enough, now he got dropped for Forest backup keeper the other week for Wales because that's how bad Wales are looking at him. And then next minute, he's gone. And there was talk as well, Kasper won't leave until we have a replacement. The problem we had then Rodgers then was he'd said away at Watford when he dropped Kasper Schmeichel, and I think this was the turning point between Kasper and Rodgers not getting on. Kasper Schmeichel was on 149 games in a row streak, and a Watford away would have been 150th game for the club in the Premier League in a row without any injuries in a row, and Rodgers dropped him. Rodgers dropped him onto the bench. And then came out and said, look, it was discussed, they all knew about it, blah, blah, blah. And from that moment on, you could tell Kasper did not look happy. He then, the next game, came back in against Norwich at home, but there was just something there, something that didn't sit right with me. And I said that I could see Kasper leaving now. I think Rodgers had annoyed him by what he'd done by dropping him for that game. And from Rodgers then came out and said at the time, and I laughed, he went, because the problem I've got is I've got 2 number 1 goalkeepers. And I'm like, what? That's some bold statement to be making about a backup keeper who we paid 12 million for 5 years ago, who's made a handful of appearances. The last time he played before that game, Watford, we got tanked in the FA Cup, and he was in goal at Forest away. And it was a strange one. It was a really strange one that we went into season with Danny Ward as the number one goalkeeper. Now, suddenly at home, you're 2-0 up and you're flying, and he's made a couple of good saves. You think, oh, okay, maybe we're wrong. Maybe, Brendan's got this right here. And at the time, we'd got Daniel Everson, the other Danish goalkeeper, who'd been on loan to Preston and got them player of the season last year. He was in the team of the season last year in the Championship. Coming back going, well, I wouldn't play first team football. I'm ready now. I'm ready to go. So now he's been a backup goalkeeper. He played in Stockport away and he saved 3 penalties and looked the real deal in my view.
Yeah.
And at the moment, we're conceding goals, and I just don't get why he's been so stubborn and will not give. He's not young. He's 25, Everson, and he will not give him a game in the Premier League. I'm like, it isn't working. Danny Ward's confidence is shot, and we saw that at the Watford against Bournemouth. I mean, the second goal is comical. The ball drops down. You're thinking, just make yourself big and low. If he lobs you, he lobs you. He jumped over the ball, and you're going. From what some people say, well, he can't defend it. He can't really do much there. No, I'm sorry. If you're a goalkeeper, no, I can't imagine any goalkeeping coach is telling you to jump at that point. If he turns around and lobs you, if he lobs you and the ball goes over your end in that, fair play. It's a cracking finish from where he was on the pitch because to get the
I don't even think he could have lobbed him anyway. Could have the angle.
The angle, how close he was to get it up and down there would have been it would have been Zlatan-esque. You would have to pull something out of the bag. You have to be that quality, not Ryan Christie. It's that he hasn't got their locker to do that. No, I'll jump over the ball. I'll make myself big and start jumping instead. I'll just literally just like when it went in, I was just like, that's our number one goalkeeper there. And this has been the biggest problem now. I don't feel the back four have got any faith in the goalie, mate. So at the moment, this is why I think the fans have turned and had enough of Rodgers. This ain't been going on this season, mate. This has been going on for about 18 months now. The performances, the dross of passing it backwards, sideways, but not really creating anything, but looking like we're going to chuck a ball in the net for fun. So, yeah, it's a strange situation what's going on at Football Club at the moment, mate. And like I say, I generally don't see how Top can back him if we lose on Saturday. Even if by 1, if we lose on Saturday, to have literally picked up 4 points from our opening 10 games is disgraceful. And as I'd say, the players have to take some of the blame because I think some of the performances haven't been good enough. And I feel sorry for Rodgers in some way because he hasn't had the money he thought he was going to spend. But on the other hand, he still has spent 210 million on that team in the last 3 years. That's not like you've not had players. You brought players in who aren't been good enough. You brought players who needed time to develop in Patson Daka and Isumari. That's fine. You brought players for the future. But the problem with doing that is what happens when you need them now. And if they're not ready now, then you're now short of a player in a position. It's the same with what Vestergaard. It was a panic buy because he played out from the back. But you put him on a 70k a week wage. Fulham offered him 35. No wonder he turned it down. He ain't going to turn down that kind of money.
No.
To stay, 35 or stay on Leicester and 75. No, I'll stay at Leicester and just play no games. Vestergaard played on Monday night in our under-21 game, mate. Leicester lost 7-0. He scored an own goal. Yeah, this is the problem we've got. We've got players on big wages. Ryan Bertram, we've barely seen kick to football.
45. He's still there.
Yeah, he's on. He's his last season. He signed a 2-year contract on a free, so we haven't paid anything for him. But he's on 75k a week for doing nothing. So this is where I think the anger of the fans come. I haven't gone way off track to talk about this game on Saturday, but it's good because you boys want to know, and the Palace fans will now understand a bit of the frustration where the fans are at. We've got players who are not playing for this football club and are milking it dry. And then you've got Rodgers moaning that we're not getting anything out of the players, or you're moaning at the fans. The fans have turned on the players. You need to stop it. And then you're moaning at the chairman, and he's just chucking players under the bunch. He won't play Kagala Soyuncu. 2 years ago, they were talking about going Real Madrid for 50 million. But his confidence is shot. But he won't put his arm around him and try and get him back to where he was at, like he did with Maddison last year.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things at the moment that aren't right at Leicester. And Leicester fans are literally at a point now where they're questioning Top. Now, I will never question the ownership because of what they've done for the football club. But if it continues and they don't get rid of Rodgers, there'll be a lot more questions going into this season. How can a manager with only 4 points in 10 games not be sacked? One final question then. What do you think the result's going to be on Saturday at the King Power when the whistle blows?
I was going to say 2-1 Palace. Now you said all that. I might have to go 3-1 Palace.
Mate, I wouldn't blame you. I really wouldn't. I mean, like I said, you get an early goal and the ground will be toxic. It will be awful in that ground on Saturday.
I just didn't realise it was that bad at Leicester. I just thought it was like a blip.
No.
But, boy, it sounds real bad.
No, mate. It's just this is not a blip, and any fans who sit and think, "Oh, Paul Leicester moaning." We're not moaning. We're just concerned about what's going on at the football club. You know, we understand the financial impacts that this COVID had on Top and his franchise, because King Power is all about duty free. Well, 2 years people weren't using airports. Obviously, it's had a massive impact on, you know, the financial King Power group and what they can offer Leicester City. No one's moaning at that. It's the moaning that Brendan Rodgers is still here after a poor start to the season. Ricky, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for talking about Palace. Obviously, good luck for Saturday. Yeah, you know, it's going to be a hell of a game. Are you at the game, are you?
Yeah, I am. I'm actually down there.
But I'll drop you a DM later, mate. Hopefully we can catch up for a beer beforehand, mate.
Oh, wicked, yeah. I'll let you know when we reach.
Oh, cool. Awesome, mate. Thanks for coming on tonight, Rich.
Appreciate you. Take care.
Cheers, mate. Bye. There you go. That is Rich. What can I say? Leicester fans, I said it before the Forest game. It's now your time to show Leicester City Top what you want to happen going forward. We gave Brendan Rodgers the Forest game. We backed Brendan Rodgers and the team, probably more the team in the Forest game. I'm still on the hand. I won't get involved with what's going on, anything else. That I want the boys to win. And I know some fans are like, I'd rather Leeds just get rid of Rodgers. Well, Top had the chance to get rid of Rodgers after the Bournemouth game and he didn't. That tells me he still might not get rid of him after the Palace game. And like I said, after Palace, we have 28 league games to turn this season around. And in my view, I don't see us turning the season around with Brendan Rodgers in charge. What we have to do as fan base is back the boys. The boys' confidence at the moment isn't high. It's probably lowest of the low at the moment after everything's gone off. And we need to be behind them boys for 90 minutes on Saturday. If a goal goes in, as I said, I can see it being toxic. Please don't make it toxic. Back the boys for 90 minutes on Saturday, because I don't want to go back to the Championship. I don't think any Leicester fan wants to be going back playing Championship football again. Don't get me wrong. If that's the way it is, I will be there next season. I'll always back this football club. But we've made ourselves and took so long to get back to the Premier League and get into a position where we were comfortable, a Premiership club comfortable being in the Premier League every year. And I want to see that again. And Saturday's a vital must win for this football club going forward. As always, smash the like button, follow Leicester Fan TV. There'll be more content building up to a massive game on Saturday at 12:30. But for now, thank you so much for joining. Drop your comments in. I want to hear your views. I'll reply to all your views. Keep it Leicester Fan TV and good night.